Good morning, Buckeye Nation, and welcome to the 11 Dubcast for Thursday, August 14th. I'm joined by our recruiting aficionado, Garrick Hodge. Garrick, how you doing today?
I'm living the dream, George. Yourself?
Pretty good. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned in the hurry up a couple of days ago, just relative to what we were talking about last week with how important, the winning or losing these games where Ohio State is hosting a lot of recruits can be to the recruits' experience. And so I thought it was interesting that this week you found out that Brady Edmunds will be visiting for the Texas game. So I don't know how often like 5-star or 4-star quarterbacks are, making an effort to get out to games like this when they've already committed to like help sell other recruits on getting in. But has that been your experience?
I wouldn't call it atypical. Normally, when you get a quarterback committed to your class, they go out of their way to become the vocal leader, I guess, of the group because, they're a lot of times the vocal leader of the team. And obviously it's a little different because last year with Tavian St. Clair being committed and living an hour away from Columbus, it's a little easier for him to get to every game. Whereas Brady Edmunds is, lives in California and is halfway across the country. But the guy acts like he lives an hour away with how often he's been in Columbus of late. Came to, I think, 4 recruiting camps over the summer just because the guy bleeds scarlet and gray already. Pulled the trigger early, and quarterback recruiting always goes the fastest. That's the fastest recruiting position by a mile to get commitments from for whatever reason, mostly because they just want those guys locked in and want to help start building the class. It's a good, starting point and a good ending point to get that guy locked in right away if you can. So, but no, I almost would be more shocked if Brady Edmunds didn't visit for the Texas game. Unless, he obviously had a flight issue. We've had this discussion about noon kickoffs before and the conflicts it can lead to with recruiting visits. But
especially if they are on the West Coast, like you said last week.
Precisely. But I think what's more cool about it is that the friendship that him and Jameer Brown, the other commit in 2027, are building 5-star in Dayton. From what I understand, Brady's coming a day before the Texas kickoff, and he's going to go watch Jameer Brown play against Pickerington Central and go kind of cheer him on. So it's always good to build chemistry with wide receivers that you're going to be throwing to on a daily basis in Columbus. So, yeah, I thought that angle was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I would say, too, Jameer Brown obviously being much closer than Brady Edmunds, it would be a cool trend to see a lot of the recruits, like if they're able to consistently keep landing these big in-state Ohio recruits at various positions, if they were able to make it out for big games like this, where we know Ohio State is going to be hosting a lot of other recruits either in the same or later cycles. So it's definitely great to see that. Doing a bit of a pivot to the offensive line developments at camp, I was wondering if maybe you could walk us through just kind of what's been happening on the bookends for Ohio State a little bit, because it seems it's been kind of a foregone conclusion, I think, what a lot of the middle of the line is going to look like, but it seems like there's been some interesting emergences at both left and right tackle. So can you talk us through a little bit what Austin Sareveld and Phillip Daniels have, the kind of strides that they've been making in camp lately?
Yeah, coming into fall camp, Ryan Day already said that Austin Sareveld was going to start at some spot on the offensive line. It was just a matter of whether it would be a tackle, whether it be a guard, etc. But Austin Sareveld's had a tremendous summer, earned Iron Buckeye honors, and has really kind of showcased as one of Ohio State's dominant tackles, and he's kind of cemented that left tackle spot, which is not exactly something that we forecasted going into the camp, of course. So, yeah, I would expect that Austin Sareveld is pretty cemented in at left tackle. Luke Montgomery is going to play guard. I would imagine that Tegris Shabola is probably going to play right guard. Carson Hinsman seems pretty entrenched at center. And then right tackle, it's just a battle between Phillip Daniels and Ethan Anawea, transfer from Rice. And, if you forecasted that Ethan might not be a starting 5 offensive lineman when they brought him in, I would have said that you're crazy. And I don't think it's necessarily because they've been disappointed on what they've seen from him. I think it's that Phillip Daniels has just been really challenging him and really pushing for that starting spot. He's received praise from James Peoples. He's received praise from Caleb Downs. He's received praise from Ryan Day all in the past week. And it's, just lost his black stripe yesterday. So he's really just making a move for that gig. And I kind of, just for selfish reasons and no other reasons than that, I wouldn't hate if he got it because he's great on the mic. He came to media availability earlier this week and said that he has a mindset to kill during practice, which when you're there, you're like, whoa, okay. But
Yeah.
all right, man, just leave me out of it. But yeah, he definitely has that mean streak that you want to see in offensive linemen. And for all the, I guess, criticism that Justin Fry got on the recruiting end, they've seemed to have shored up their misses in the transfer portal with Phillip Daniels and Ethan on the offensive tackle side of things. And this is probably just fall camp bias and, nobody's saying anything bad about them right now and nobody's lost a game yet. So everything's all flowery and everything's all rosy and you know how it goes. But this is one of the more deeper offensive lines I can remember at Ohio State for a while.
Yeah, I think a lot of people anticipated that, given this was one of the only position groups that didn't have like an egregious amount of turnover, I think, relative to a lot of the other team. Even though the saying goes, they don't rebuild, they reload. There's still, I think the offensive line, especially given you have a season where you have two backs that hit 1,000 yards rushing, even with the extra CFP games, given not that amount of turnover along the whole line, basically. It is replacing talents at tackle, but I think relative to a lot of other teams that would have that kind of success, you would expect most of those names to be gone. So I'm definitely optimistic about that group. I guess the last question I want to ask you is, one of the things that emerged like Thursday night last week was that Ryan Day is supposedly, he said he wants to know who his starting quarterback is by the end of this week. I would imagine, based on what Dan was telling us, that announcement will probably come the following Monday. So compared to the quarterback battle, to the position battle that has been happening at right tackle, do you think that it is important for a starter at that position to be named with the same amount of time to prepare as a starter before the season, or do you anticipate this one dragging out a little bit more and maybe going further into the week, possibly even only a few days before the season opener against Texas?
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure I've thought about it quite that way, so you bring up an interesting point. But obviously, each offense starts with your quarterback, so I think getting a guy entrenched in there is priority number one. And, the earlier a guy can separate from the other is ideal to just start building your offense around that player, especially because in this instance, I think Julian Sain and Lincoln Kienholz are vastly different quarterbacks, obviously. With Sain having the quick trigger, quick release, and Kienholz being kind of more of the athletic build type of quarterback. But I think the easiest way to say it is that when a guy's prove that they deserve to start, it's just kind of right out in front of you. I know Ryan Day has that timeline in mind, but if for whatever reason he feels like it needs an extra week, I mean, he's not going to announce it on Monday just because he set an arbitrary deadline. I think he will probably announce a starting quarterback by Monday, just based on a gut feeling and nothing else. But yes, I would guess that we'll get a quarterback announcement before Ryan Day tells us anything about whether Phillip or Ethan are going to start at right tackle. And hey, maybe they'll come on the same day. You never know. It could be maybe they're announced at the same time. Maybe it doesn't have to be which one gets announced first.
Yeah, more clarity, I think, is always good for everybody. And me personally, I would like to see whoever is going to be anointed the starter get as much time to prepare for that as possible. So not to say that, I don't trust Day's judgment if this does drag out into the week and they need that much more time to decide. I would just hope to see that, given the seriousness they're taking, especially since, the McCord-Devin Brown battle that dragged out almost 3 weeks. Obviously, they're going to commit to one guy and it's not going to drag into the season, but you just want clarity at every position I think possible as you're getting this close. So it'll be interesting to see who gets named the starting player at both positions. And obviously we're only a handful of days away from that, but for quarterbacks, but only time will tell for the right tackle spot. So Garrick, thank you very much for joining me today. We will be back tomorrow for the Friday episode with Dan Hope. Take care, folks.